Any other thoughts on the question?
I mean, one thing to keep in mind is there's always a trade-off between NRE and your license rate later. You know, you should take the NRE that you need. You should focus on what is truly custom for the product you deliver to them, and not try to dip too deep there, because it will come back to bite you.
All right. And we've got a question here.
How about IP? Who keeps the IP in these arrangements typically?
I think that's probably John. Do you want to talk about who keeps the intellectual property?
If it's NRE, typically it is the corporate partner, because they're actually purchasing the work, as a consultant relationship would be. If it's a royalty relationship and based on collaboration, often the jointly developed IP is co-owned, but all IP that you own separately that you develop prior to the relationship remains your IP.
Which is a good reason why you don't want to take too much NRE, because your IP is absolutely your crown jewels. And if there is one thing that one needs to protect all the way through the contract negotiation, it's to make sure that you have clear ownership to your IP, because it's the key to your exit strategy at some point.
All right, and then more questions from the audience? All right, so maybe we can keep talking on that theme. Matt, has that come up yet? Are you doing NRE work, or is it? Have you taken a more independent path so far?
Yeah, I mean, our partnership is independent. We're kind of working directly with Samsung just at the moment, as I said, on their roadmap to try and kind of leverage the devices. I mean, our service is very device specific. It's not kind of we're a consumer internet product, but we really are focusing on getting the best out of different devices. So yeah, our partnership is based on like a mutual vision and how we can work together.
Yeah. Have you been tempted by the kind of quick cash hit of NRE?
At the moment, we're going on from the previous kind of talk. It's much easier to get yourself, if you've got an idea that you believe in, you've got a team that are galvanized and are passionate, you can get to market and do incredible things, like with much less capital than was required before. So for us, it's about creating a compelling product and getting it out there, but in an intelligent way, partnering with Samsung so that we know that when we hit the market, we're going to have the right applications in the right territories, and we understand our consumers from a very early stage, and we can manage them effectively.
So these are two key insights I think I'll highlight that you may not even think about when you kind of get the proposal, to do custom work for a big corporate partner. You've got to think about two things. One is, what's the intellectual property value that you're building over the long term? Also, where's the passion? Are you going to be passionate about doing work for hire ultimately? Are you going to be able to motivate the team around it? Sometimes in business you've got to do what you've got to do, but it's not always the best course. Stephen, when you see NRE as kind of part of a deal that comes up, is that a red flag for you even?
For oftentimes, NRE, we actually like seeing NRE in the contracts because, so what happens within Samsung is we actually manage our own independent fund. Most of our limited partner capital does come from one of the various Samsung Group companies. And so when we see NRE in a contract, it automatically shows that there's a higher level of commitment from the guys on our business as opposed to us simply opening the doors and trying to make sure they're able to close it, at a later date.
So it actually does show that, the business wants something concrete and specific out of the relationship.
I would say it depends on what it is, but it's always a good sign if a company is willing to pay you $2 million to work on something. It's, whether you're a small company or a big company, $2 million is still a large amount of money.
That's fair enough. Don't turn your nose up at money. Any more questions at this point from the audience? We've got one here.
What's the impact on exit? You've got a corporate investor. Along comes your primary competitor, wants to pay a big price for this company. Aren't you limited on your exit choices and the return that you can get on the on the investment.
John, do you want to start with that?
It depends on the terms, of course, but if it's a commercial agreement, often there may be a consent requirement for the change of control of your company. In some cases, you can argue and negotiate away from that, so it's just a notification, for example. In addition, in some cases, if it's an equity investment, in some cases, the corporate investor may, and Cisco is very well known for this, have a right of first refusal. So those are things to take into account, but there are less draconian versions of these requirements that are more commonplace now than in the past.
What I've seen from companies that are really worried about that is they often try to negotiate hard on the term of the contract to keep it to a shorter term so that they're not working for a competitor and then supporting Samsung for years after they're working at a competitor, which would make the deal pretty unpalatable to the acquirer.
This is an area which, if you're going to spend a lot of time on the contract, is worth a month of work. It all comes down to making sure that, I mean, from the big partner's viewpoint, if you're strategic to them, they don't want you to disappear, but at the same time, you do have to have a level playing field at the point of an exit. So it all comes down to exactly how it's worded, giving them some notice, some way for them to manage the situation.
All right. Well, I think that's a good note to wrap up on. Just to kind of summarize some of the advice we've got, find a champion going in. Think about the exit even as you negotiate that first contract. Make sure there's a strategic fit. Figure out how you fit into their roadmap. Think carefully, how you structure it. Royalties. Do you want non-recurring engineering? And then hopefully there's a happy ending, whether it's an ongoing business relationship or a nice exit. So I'd like to thank our panelists again: Don Pitt from Samsung, John Park, Morgan Lewis, Ross Bott from Seven, Matt Hagger from Zkatter, and Stephen Lee from Samsung Ventures. Thank you all.